Okay, there was a big rabbi in Chabad. You have to excuse me because I forgot his name, but he was in Lubavitch. He was a tremendous genius and a very, very holy person. And on Passover, he would never eat by anybody's house. Like we just finished learning. He would never eat by anyone's house. He was very, very strict, super strict. But there was one chassid that he would eat by his house. He would eat by this chassid's house. And when he was asked, he went to the chassid's house and the chassid offered him food. Like we just finished saying, you don't offer people food. But this one chassid offered this big rabbi food, and he said, okay, and he took it. Everybody was very amazed. They were very amazed. Usually this rabbi was very strict. On Passover, super strict. And no one would offer him food. And for sure, if someone would offer him food, he would say, I'm sorry, but our custom is, and some people, he was explaining himself, that I'm very careful, nothing about you personally, but I don't eat in other people's houses. By him, he would eat. So the rabbi was asked why. So the rabbi explained that in Russia, there were times when there was, I guess, cholera, I guess you call it, cholera, cholera. And it was a terrible disease, and there was basically no cure for it. There was no cure for it. A person would get sick, and the only cure they had was the person would drink tea with hot water. That was it. The person would get sick, and he would get sicker and sicker, and until he would lose consciousness, and then he would. That was very dangerous to lose consciousness, and then that was the time we would decide it. Either the fever would break and the person would live, which was rare, or the person would die. And it was a terrible, terrible disease, and it was very contagious. And the people that had cholera, they would put them in a special, quarantine place and a special hospital, and only the craziest of doctors would go there to, take care of these people, or nurses, and they would. And they would go, they give them tea, they would give them food, whatever. And so this rabbi said, I became sick, and they put me in quarantine, and I was there alone. And this chassid, every day he used to go around the side. He ascertained where my room was from the outside, and every room, of course, had a window, or every bed had a window nearby. And he stood outside of the window and he read the 11th chapter, Laskil Chabina, of in the Tanya, in the holy letters. It's called the Igeres HaKodesh, where it talks about that you have to accept negative things that happen are really the will of God, and that you have to be happy in all situations and understand that there's definitely a benefit for negative things if they happen to you. If they happen to somebody else, you can't justify it. But if it happens to you, that you can be positive, and he gave reasons to be positive. This shows on the closeness of God, that God is close to you, and that by means of that, you can do away with all the bad things by having a positive attitude. And this chassid would stand outside of the window, and he would read aloud. He would yell this chapter over and over again. I don't know, maybe hours. He would read it so that the sick rabbi, the rabbi himself, he was speaking for himself, that I would hear these positive words, encouraging words, and that's what took me out of my negative thoughts. Such a situation like that, everybody's dying around you. You think, okay, my end is near. You think negatively. I must have done something wrong. I did whatever it is that you shouldn't think negatively in such situations, and that corrects the situation. Is that's the solution. And this chassid stood outside of the window and said that, and the rabbi, the great rabbi who was sick inside, heard these encouraging words, and his attitude, positive attitude, that caused him to be cured. He said, therefore, he did such an amazing thing for me, he saved my life, and it was a self-sacrifice for him, and not just his, sacrificing his time and his energy, but his very life. He could, Cholera was tremendously addict. What it spread. What do they call the word? Anyway, it spread from one person to another. Okay, sometimes words jump out of my mind. Out of mind. And so it was a very dangerous thing for him to do, and he did it, so he saved my life. With this comes another story that I would like to tell. And this is the second Rebbe of Chabad, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad was the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Shlom Daber, and he also got this cholera. This is how I heard the story. You can correct it, but he also got cholera. And of course, what happened is a person would get the disease and he would, go into a deep coma or sleep, whatever. And if he came out, he came out. If not, one of his favorite Hasidim was Rabbi Yaakov Landau. Rabbi Yaakov Landau was a genius in learning Torah. He later became the chief rabbi of Bnei Brak. I knew him, Bnei Brak, and he was also a doctor. He was also a doctor. He wasn't like a university doctor. He knew all sorts of very interesting cures, which I saw some of the cures that he did, and they were really quite amazing. Stopping nosebleed by tying a string around the person's finger. It's amazing. It works all the time. But just by the way, if a person has a nosebleed, one thing you tie a string, tie it really tightly around the little finger. Maybe every finger works. I don't know. A little finger, and it stops the nosebleed. I've seen it happen tens of times, maybe 50 times. Makes no sense, but it works. The nosebleed, tie a string around the finger tightly, and the nosebleed stops. Okay, that's not the point. So Rabbi Yaakov Landau, he was tremendously close to the Rebbe Rashab, tremendously close. And the Rebbe Rashab even took him as the rabbi of his household. He would ask him questions. And whenever a legal thing came up in the house, about a question in law, as the Rebbe Rashab would ask Rabbi Landau. That's what they say. It was tremendously tied. His soul to the Rebbe's soul, and the Rebbe's soul to his. Anyway, so they both got cholera at the same time. And Rabbi Yaakov Landau, he had cholera, and meanwhile, the Rebbe, he passed away. The Rebbe did not survive. And Rabbi Yaakov Landau didn't know about it. Okay, like I told you from the previous story, you see that a person's attitude is very important to get out of this disease, really to get out of any disease, a person's attitude, positive attitude. So as Rabbi Landau was getting better, he was still in danger, but he was getting better. So they would take him outside into the sun, which would, the sun has a healing effect. But there were strict orders by all the Hasidim, it was accepted that you not to tell Rabbi Landau that the Rebbe Rashab had passed away, because that would make him tremendously depressed and sad and heartbroken, and that would be dangerous to him. But one Hasid didn't know anything about it. He didn't know, and everyone that went by Rabbi Landau would ask, what about the Rebbe? How is the Rebbe? How is the Rebbe? And everyone would say, Hashem will help him. Maybe he'll get better soon. We're all praying for him. Everyone would say something implying that the Rebbe was alive. But one Chassid seems that he didn't know about this, or somebody didn't know about it, maybe a child or something. And he asked him, how is the Rebbe? And he said, oh, didn't hear the Rebbe passed away. So Rabbi Landau wrote a note, and he gave it to someone, one Chassid. This all happened in the city of Lubavitch, right? No, I'm sorry. It happened in Rostov. I'm sorry, it happened in Rostov. Because Chabad moved when the First World War, it moved from Lubavitch to Rostov. Rostov is like in the south. So he wrote a letter. So the Rebbe is buried there, not far away from where Landau was. So he wrote a letter saying, Rebbe, I want you to take me away. I want to be together with you. I don't want to live anymore. Without you, I don't want to be alive. And he wrote a letter, and he put it in an envelope, sealed the envelope, and he gave it to one of the Hasidim. He said, do me a favor, go to the Rebbe's grave and put this on the Rebbe's grave. And the Chassid, don't open it. So we did. He went to the Rebbe's grave, and he put it on the Rebbe's grave. The next day, the Rebbe's son, who became, of course, the next Rebbe, that was the Rebbe, the Rayatz. He said, he came to Rabbi Landau. How are you feeling? Okay, I came to, to visiting the sick is a big commandment, a big mitzvah in Judaism. I came, how are you feeling? How is everything? He said, I was just by my father's grave. He said to Rabbi Landau, I was just by my father's grave. My father told me to tell you not to make ridiculous requests. Don't make stupid requests. Narish shailos. Don't make foolish requests. In other words, his father had passed away. But his father spoke to him. Spoke to him because, first of all, people really never die. The soul never dies. But Rebbe's, even their body doesn't die. We can't possibly understand what this means because, I mean, he was buried. There's a place where he was buried. Obviously, he did die, but he didn't really. They say that every Jew really has an infinite, eternal body, but we just don't see it. We don't feel it. And by some people, like Mashiach, it'll be revealed. And by these rabbis, it's always, however it was, I don't know. But nevertheless, the previous Rebbe came back and he said, I was just by my father's grave. And my father said, don't make stupid requests. And so it was. The Rebbe Landau lived a long time afterwards. Right? The previous Rebbe passed away in 1920. And I knew Rabbi Landau in, I think 1980, I knew it. I think he passed away somewhere in 1980, somewhere like. So he lived another 50 years, 60 years. What does it come to show us? Attitude is essential. We have to have positive attitude, and with that, we will go out of Egypt. We'll reveal all the good potential in everything in the world. That's the whole purpose of Mashiach, and we need Mashiach now. Have a good Shabbat and have a happy holiday. This Shabbat is also the holiday of Shvi Shal Pesach. We don't say Shechianu. We don't say Shechianu, but we do make Kiddush. Have a happy holiday and a good Shabbos, and we'll see each other, God willing, on Sunday at 8 in the morning.